There was a golden dog that jumped out of the cage. After that, unfortunately, it was taken away by two dog thieves. The two of them thought they would have delicious dog meat to eat. Then they locked the dog in the car and happily went out drinking. But that day, the weather was extremely hot. This made the dog in the car unable to breathe. Its eyes slowly closed. It could no longer see everything around. Fortunately, there was a mother and her son seeing it in the car. The mother quickly took a hammer and broke the car door. After that, they brought the dog home to adopt. When the dog woke up, it immediately recognized them as the ones who had saved it. Therefore, the dog decided to be loyal to his owner for life. The boy's name was Ethan, and the dog was named Bailey. Bailey and Ethan sneaked the mother under the blanket to read comics together. Bailey even showed his knack for Ethan, that it sucked its tail and spun in circles. Bailey and Ethan were getting closer and closer to each other. Bailey really loved to catch the rugby ball that Ethan threw. Time was slowly passing. Bailey stayed by Ethan's side until he was an adult. Thanks to Bailey's help, Ethan was dating a beautiful girl, who was also his first love. The two of them loved each other so passionately. When sitting in the car, they didn't hesitate to show their love to each other although Bailey was still there. Bailey would also jump on the top seat to be hugged by Ethan's girlfriend. At night, when seeing them kissing, Bailey would also rush over. For Bailey, Ethan was the only friend it could play with for the rest of its life. On graduation day, Ethan's team took first place in the football competition. He became the school's football star. However, Ethan's friends insulted him in front of his girlfriend. Although he was the champion, his dad was just a poor person. Hearing that, Ethan rushed to punch his friend. His friend was knocked to the ground. This made Ethan's friend feel resentful, and then did terrible things. That night, he brought firecrackers to Ethan's house and set them on fire. As a result, Ethan's house was on fire and Bailey found out first. It rushed to the second floor to wake Ethan up. Then Ethan ran to his mother's room to call her. It was all fire underneath, so they couldn't run out. They had to use curtains to make rope. Ethan brought his mom down first. Then it was Bailey's turn. But unexpectedly, at this moment, the rope suddenly broke. Seeing that, Ethan could only choose to jump down to help Bailey. Unfortunately, he broke his leg. While in danger because of saving Bailey, Ethan had broken his leg. Since then, Bailey discovered that Ethan became extremely quiet. He didn't play with it anymore. At this time, Bailey also had a new friend. It was a black donkey. Ethan's girlfriend still visits them often. Bailey was also delighted when she arrived. However, it also felt the feelings of Ethan, and his girlfriend had changed. Because Ethan couldn't get into the same university as his girlfriend, and he was in the inferiority complex, so he decided to say goodbye to her. Hearing that, his girlfriend was extremely heartbroken. She threw the ball back and quickly got into the car, and then drove away. However, Bailey didn't understand why she left. That day, Ethan went to study abroad. Before leaving, he threw the ball to Bailey and waved goodbye. After that, he got in the car and left. At this time, Bailey realized that Ethan was getting further and further away, so it rushed over. It ran on the vast prairie. It also tried to run after Ethan's car. It finally jumped on the car. Ethan quickly hugged Bailey and kissed it. After that, he dropped Bailey and the ball into the road and left. Bailey didn't understand why both Ethan and his girlfriend left it. Since then, Bailey was always very sad. It didn't want to play and didn't want to eat. It wasn't also as fun as it used to be. It always remembers the good times of the past. After that, Bailey was taken to the hospital. At this time, it felt extremely exhausted and short of breath. It just hoped to see Ethan one last time. It just needed to be like that. Bailey wanted to meet the most important person in its life, and its lifelong wish was to see Ethan live happily. Surprisingly, Ethan suddenly approached it. Before dying, Bailey was able to see his owner. Eventually, it has fulfilled its last wish. Later, Bailey reincarnated as a police dog. It was given a new name, Ellie. At this time, it and its owner had completed many important tasks. Its owner was a person who had nothing. He only had Ellie by his side. It perceived the loneliness in its owner's heart. It wanted to lie in bed with him. That night both of them slept very soundly because they no longer felt lonely when they were together. In a kidnapping case, Ellie found the criminal. In the process of catching criminals, it knocked down a criminal who was about to shoot its owner, but unfortunately it was shot. Finally, Ellie passed away in the loving arms of its owner, because it knew that it died in order to protect its owner. It looked at him crying. Ellie's only regret was that it couldn't be with its owner anymore. It couldn't be with this lonely man anymore. After that, it was reincarnated and became a cute dog named Tino. Its owner was a kind girl named Maya. Maya always took it with her. Sometimes she still talked with it about she had been single for so long. Because she was often shy, she couldn't find a boyfriend. That day, Tino was taken to the park by Maya, and it met and fell in love with a black dog. For the first time it knew what the vibrations of love were. The owner of the black dog was also a handsome man. Just met, Maya and this man were also in love with each other. And so were the two dogs. They even brought both dogs to their wedding. And then, their children were born in turn. The two dogs also became friends with the children. However, the black dog had started to get old. That day, the black dog was taken to the hospital, and it never came back. Time was slowly passing. Tino also had a happy life. In the next life, it was bought by a woman. However, because this woman's family didn't allow animals in the house, it had to stay outside the house, and it had also endured the cold weather of countless winters. It was also gradually growing up, so the women didn't care much about it anymore. Because it didn't get bathed often, its body had an unpleasant smell. That day, there was a man dragging it into the car. He took it to a faraway place, and left it there. Watching the man slowly left, but it didn't choose to chase, because that house was no longer a place for it to return, because it didn't feel the love for it there. Although Bailey had been through 3 lives, it still remembered a familiar scent. It was a scent Bailey would never forget. It felt very familiar to this field, and also familiar with the fragrance of the field. It ran desperately. It felt the fear, so it tried its best to run. It then saw a donkey. That donkey was its friend in the previous life. When turning around, it saw 2 people. This was its owner whom it could never forget. It rushed over and frantically licked his face. At this time, it seemed that its owner got old a lot. However, Ethan thought it was a wild dog, so he took it away. I took Bailey to a place that collected wild dogs, but at night, he suddenly remembered the dog that was with him when he was young. The next day, he took Bailey back home. He bathed it and put a necklace on it. He wanted to stay with Bailey for the rest of his life. Bailey sensed that Ethan was having some unhappy things, because all these years, he was still lonely. That day, when going out, Bailey smelled a familiar scent. That was the smell of Ethan's ex-girlfriend. Thanks to the address on Bailey's neck, she found Ethan. Finally, Ethan was met his ex-girlfriend who he has always missed for all these years. Both of them once regretted their past relationship. After that, they continued to love each other like the first time. That day, Bailey found an old ball in the warehouse. It was the ball it had waited for its lifetimes. It brought the ball to Ethan in order that he threw to it. Then he stood up and threw the ball. It was still that familiar movement and shape. Bailey's catching movement was also very accurate, and still the same as before. The man suddenly felt very confused. "Are you Bailey?" Bailey also replied back to him by barking. Then it also performed its familiar movements. At this time, Ethan also understood what Bailey had been through. Although it has gone through so many rounds of reincarnation, it still couldn't forget its owner. Let's be nice to your dog, because in their world, they only know their owner. If you can't afford to take care of them, don't bring them home. The movie comes here. See you on the next movies.